Howdy folks, I'm Keith Bowen and this is Hard Rock University. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about purchasing and leasing mining claims. Now, I'll start out with the situation of, let's say you own some mining claims and want to lease it to a large corporation because it'll demonstrate the various principles involved best. And then we'll get into, small situations where it's like leasing it to somebody or a couple people, or if you're leasing it from somebody like that. So my brother and I have 20 claims south of Tucson here, and we think there's a reasonable chance that there may be a substantial disseminated ore body out there somewhere. There's lots of little mines hither and thither. Some of the bedrock samples have shown what would be leachable ore grades for an open pit. So we think there's that possibility. However, we don't know. Nobody would know at this point. One thing we could do, which we probably should, is to go out there and just grid off Gold Hollow, say on a 100-foot grid, dig down to bedrock, which in most cases is like this deep, and sample the bedrock, dig below the surface so that you're not at the soil bedrock interface, but get at least 6 inches below that before start taking your sample. And take a bunch of samples, crush them, hand pan them, and then, assuming that those results look interesting, send some off to assay, confirm what we're doing here, make sure it looks good, and then, assuming that the results continue to show reasonable grades, do some more actual lab assays to confirm everything, and then go to a small to mid-sized mining company. We actually know a few people, so we could do this. It's something we probably really ought to get off our duffs and do. But anyhow, so we go out there and we present our information to Joe, small mining company, and say, hey, we got this property, we think it's got potential, but we don't know for sure. And they'll look at it and they'll go, you may be right. Now, in order for a company to keep operating, especially a small company, their mines generally don't last that long, anywhere from a couple years to maybe 10 years. And so they got to keep bringing new ones on board. The exploration department has to stay pretty busy in order to keep coming up with profitable properties. As a general rule, when I worked for ChemGold, they said they had to look at 300 possibilities to find one profitable mine. So they have to stay pretty busy. They also have to be pretty careful to eliminate things that aren't going to work as quickly and cheaply as possible. Minimum effort and expenditure of resources. So assuming they like the initial data we show them, then they may come out and just take a quick overview look, and take some of their own surface samples or whatever, just to confirm that we are reasonably accurate. Now, this doesn't mean they don't necessarily trust us, although they should not trust us if they don't know us very well, because we may be wrong. We may be lying, we may be trying to deceive them, which is fairly common, although it's not generally very profitable with a mining company. But we're more likely to simply be mistaken. We think it looks good, but it's really not that great. So they're going to come out and take a quick look, and then at that point they may decide, okay, this is still looking like it has potential, but before we go finding a big ore body for somebody else, we want to lock this thing up. We want to lock it down so no matter what happens, it works to our advantage. So they will typically write up the lease agreement, because they do it all the time. The lease agreement should have a series of contingencies and options, okay? Because again, nobody knows what's there. So the first thing is some sort of fee. You know, say they're paying us $1,000 a month. Okay, well that's $1,000 a month we didn't have before. They're going to have to engage in an exploration program of some sort. In this case, probably the first thing I would do if I was them was do a geophysical survey. Because right now, you'd be trying to find out, is there an ore body? And so first you're looking for an anomaly that you can sit there and go, okay, there's something different there. Let's punch a hole in it and see what the heck it is. Or can we surface sample this anomaly and get an idea of what it is? Geophysical studies are relatively inexpensive compared to the kind of data you get. You're seeing into the rock, but you're basically just seeing differences. It's not quantitative in terms of telling you what's different so much as it is this is different from that. And then you have to take a look at the surface or drill holes to find out what the different things are. So let's say you lease it to them. The first contingency is a 1-year lease at $1,000 a month, and they're going to go out there and do a geophysical study, at the end of which time they will make a decision whether they want to keep leasing it and do more or not. Now, this brings up the subject of, well, they just did a $5,000 or $10,000 study. What happens to all that information? Well, if they drop the property, it should come to you. Now, they obviously don't want to be giving away this information to somebody that they may be negotiating with. If they will, that's fine. If they will agree to share everything basically as they acquire it, that's great. But it's not unusual for them to say, if we drop the property, you get copies of all our reports, information, assay sheets, blah, 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 blah. Okay? They may come out there and survey in the claims. Go out there and have a survey crew come out there and reestablish all the claims, make sure they know exactly what they have. If they find a target and they think it's interesting, now they're going to have to drill it in general. And depending upon the type of equipment they use, the depth they're going to and things like this, they may, for example, have to establish roads. It's not uncommon at all. They have to take a bulldozer and bulldoze in roads to get to the various drill sites. If they do that, BLM isn't going to be really happy if they do that without permission, and there's going to be reclamation involved and this and that. So this is the next thing. The lease should say all activities which they engage in have to be properly permitted, reclaimed, bonded, all at their expense. Okay? Another thing is that the annual maintenance work should be done by them. However, you can't trust them to do it right because, among other things, if they fuck it up, then it's open ground. They could restake it. You could take them to court, but they've probably got lawyers on retainer and you don't. So the lease should say they have to do all of this work, and 1 month before the deadline, you have to be presented with the completed paperwork that's all paid, etc., etc. So if they don't get it done on time, you have the time to go do it yourself. Okay? Now, they go out there and they do a drill program. Holy crap, they hit a good one. This is nice. Now they're going to have to go out there and get the permits for a mine and this and that and the other. That's going to take years and cost a whole crap load of money. But why the heck are they only spending $1,000 a month on you at this point? They found a real mine. There should be an escalating series of monthly payments depending upon, if they stay in this thing, it's because it's looking more and more interesting. So again, if they're spending $100,000 on drilling, $12,000 to keep the land isn't as important. So you should have an escalating series of monthly payments. It also motivates them to either, get going or get out, one or the other. Now, let's say they get the permits. They turn it into a mine. They've actually got a mine now. They're making money. Well, you should be getting more. Well, yes, but how much more? The way that is usually determined is what they call a royalty. In other words, you're getting a cut of the action. Now, What cut of the action? If you are dumb enough to say a percentage of the profits, you will get what you deserve. Accountants are extremely innovative at maximizing profits when talking to investors and minimizing profits when they're talking to the tax man. Okay? It can be entirely two different universes you're looking at here, depending upon how they define the word profit. For example, if the president of the company gets paid $250,000 a year, that comes before profits. Although you might think, well, wait a minute, that's my property, I should get some of that. What they found over the years, the simplest way to deal with this question is something called net smelter return. You don't worry about the costs. What you worry about is what did you actually get. Now it comes from when they used to send the concentrates off to a smelter and it would be smelted down into a saleable product, and then they would return you the value of that product or the product itself. You can theoretically do it either way, but it's the recovered valuable mineral. And if we're talking gold or silver, it'll be how much gold or silver is actually recovered. If you watch Gold Rush, that pile of gold they have there, that's the net smelter return. When Tony Beats gets 20% of the kids' stuff, that's what he's getting, 20% of that pile of gold. The reason is because that pile of gold is easily and objectively measured. You know how much you got. When you send off material to a refiner, how much they actually report they recovered, not necessarily how much they actually did, but how much they report they recovered, is again a very objective and easily identifiable number. Things like profits, yeah, that can get real interesting. So it'll be net smelter return. This brings up another subject of should you get cash or metal? Well, for a simple situation, let's suppose you have a placer mine, aka the kind of stuff they have at Gold Rush, in the United States, and you make 1,000 ounces, okay? And your cost was 500 ounces, the money you can get for 500. If you cash in the entire 1,000 ounces and then pay the 500 ounces worth of expenses, that other 500 ounces worth of cash is completely taxable income. Okay? On the other hand, if you only cashed in 500 ounces and paid your bills and retained the other 500 ounces and just kind of divvied it up amongst yourselves, it is not taxable income, at least under the current laws, I understand it, because it doesn't have a set value. The value of that pile of gold is changing hour by hour. So, what's the taxable value? Okay? It becomes taxable when you sell it or exchange it for something of value, because at that point the price has now been set. It is now in concrete. At this point in time, that value was exchanged for that gold. So in many cases, it may be desirable to defer that cashing in process to the far future. If you think the price of gold is going to go up, it's much better to hold on to it. If you're currently making a lot of money as an income, let's say you're in a mining company and you form a mining company for this, and you're getting paid $50,000 a year plus 10%, well, put that 10% in the safe, because when you retire, you can cash it in then and pay a lower tax rate on it. Discuss these things with your accountant, of course, but that's an important consideration. When you send it off to a refiner or a smelter, you may want them to return your own metal to you. It may cost you more, but it may save you a lot in taxes. It all depends. Your situation's unique. You decide. Now, let's see how these principles apply to a small mining situation. Let's say Fred, the claim owner, is renting to George, the claim renter. Okay? And the owner has a claim, he doesn't know how much it is, but he's happy to get $100 a month. And the renter, he's happy to spend $100 a month to have some place where he can go out there and play his prospecting hobby. That may be all that you need to worry about. Everybody's happy. This guy gets $100, the other guy pays $100, he's happy to do that, he's happy to get it, end of story. Okay? On the other hand, if you are renting the claim with the intention of making money, it changes around a little bit. You now need to know that that particular claim has the potential to make money. That means sampling. Now, if you're a claim owner and somebody wants to come in and sample, he's not insulting you. He's merely being intelligent. Okay? We've had a couple of claim owners that when we're like, okay, we want to get, some bucket-sized samples here. They're, oh, you're just high grading. It's like, no, because I want to get a bucket-sized sample of everything. The hanging wall, the foot wall, the vein, the tailing stumps, everything. I simply want a large sample. That's understandable. The bigger the sample, the more reliable the sample is. If you're going to be that touchy, work the claim yourself, damn it. That's not unreasonable. Likewise, if a claim owner sits there and says, well, look at all these reports from the past, it's like, well, fine, that's the past. I don't know what's in there. Now they found, 50,000 tons of 1 ounce to the ton in 1928. Well, did they mine it all in 1929? I don't know. I got to go see what's accessible. Depending upon your resources, you may not have a whole lot of money to spend opening up old workings and such and stabilizing ground that's been crumbling for decades. So you need to take a look at it in person or have someone qualified that you trust to do that for you. But go ahead and look at the situation and ascertain what the ground truth is right now. You're buying or leasing what's there now, not what was there at some time in the past, not the mining district it sits in or the mine next door that made 1 million ounces to the ton. None of that matters. It's interesting. But what matters is, what has this hole in the ground got? For that, you got to go take a look at it. You got to sample it. You got to take the samples yourself, make sure nobody else plays with the samples, and have them analyzed by a lab or someone that you trust. Depending upon the situation, it can be fairly simple. If all you can do is a simple gravity separation, if that's all that your expertise and resources would allow, if you can't crush it and hand pan it, it doesn't matter. There could be 100 ounces to the ton there in arsenopyrite and atomic solution in the arsenopyrite. It's not going to do you a lot of good, okay, if you don't have the resources to deal with it. So find out what it is, and if they're all touchy about you taking your own samples and stuff, best not to deal with them. They're being unreasonable. Unreasonable people make very difficult. This business is very emotional. It brings out the worst in people. The greed, the fear, the uncertainty, all these things get exacerbated. The what they call confirmation bias, seeing what you want to see, not necessarily what's truly objectively there. High grading samples subconsciously, things like this. I've never been to a mine that was exactly, in my eyes, what I thought it was from the descriptions, maps, and everything else that I had seen. My ability to visualize reality from this information is not 100%. Sometimes a lot better than others. But get there and take a look at it. That's what matters. And if it fits your needs and you can compensate the owner something that they're comfortable with, then fine, you can make a deal. Follow the same principles. Options, pay scales that everyone agrees with are reasonable, and figure it out over the long run. Okay, we come out here, we're mining, and we're going to give you this much percentage, but if it exceeds so much per year, that percentage drops from 10 to 5. Something like that. Whatever. Everyone needs to be comfortable. If the situation changes, they still need to be relatively comfortable, or you're going to have a really unpleasant time. Another thing is, the claim owner needs to have the right to observe anything at any time. He or his representative. Especially if they're getting a percentage, well, they have to be able to say, okay, I want my buddy to watch it as you guys are recovering this gold to make sure that you're being honest with me. I need to be able to come out there and make sure you're not breaking the law, you're not illegally disposing of waste or whatever. Okay? If the renter won't agree to that, well, you don't want to rent to them because it's perfectly reasonable. You're entering into a kind of a partnership. Now, another thing that can be a real problem here is if you own the claim and you want to put it in production or whatever, you think you got a good claim, but of course you don't have the resources or the time or the whatever, so you want to bring somebody else in on it, do not give them a percentage of the claim. Okay? Guaranteed going to cause problems. If you own the claim, like my brother and I own claims. He owns some claims, I own other claims. We don't own them jointly. Okay? But the reason you don't do this is, let's suppose you own a claim and your buddy Fred gets involved here. And then you have a disagreement and you just can't work together for whatever reason. Maybe he gets in a car accident, gets whacked in the head, and now he's just a complete asshole. Things happen. He gets killed. Now his wife is in, she's a part owner. Oh my God. What you would do in a case like that is you retain full ownership of the claim, full and undisputed ownership. You would then lease it at a nominal fee, $1 a year, whatever, to a partnership that you set up with your buddy Fred. This is a mining company. This is the ownership. The mining company or partnership leases it. That way, if the partnership ever becomes unworkable, you've still got your claim unencumbered and nobody else is going to mess with you. If you can't do it, fine. The lease goes up. There's always terms in here. It'll time out at some particular point if certain things don't happen. If you guys can't get together and make those things happen, well, then the partnership didn't make them happen, and now you've got the right to kick the partnership off the claim. Just that simple. Never give up ownership unless you just sell the damn thing at a price that you're comfortable with. You don't sell it on contingency. If you sell it, you're done with it. If there's going to be a contingency, you lease it. You do not sell it. And that's why. Okay? You don't want to be part owner of something that you don't control. And I've seen some bad situations where that has happened. So, don't give up ownership. Cover your ass. Minimize your risk. Make sure the deal will work for everybody all the way into the future as far as the eye can see and even farther. And you should be okay. Always double check everything, verify everything, trust nobody including yourself. Double check everything. And then come up with a deal that everyone can live with, and you should be reasonably happy. If you can't do that, go look for another property. You'll probably be happier in the long run. So those are some of the basic principles of leasing and selling mining claims. Obviously, it's a very complex subject. I can't cover everything. Get legal advice where necessary, blah, blah, blah. Insert boilerplate here. Okay? And have fun, happy prospecting, and keep it safe out there.